Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're very thrilled to be hosting here at CPOC another in our series of conversations with the Chiefs. And today, obviously celebrating Black History Month, we have a webinar offering for you, our title being The Diversity Matters, Strengthening the Probation Profession for All. And that is, again, what's brought us here today. I'm Karen Pank. I'm the Executive Director of the Chief Probation Officers of California, we lovingly call CPOC. And so we'll be hosting the conversation and really would welcome all of you who are joining us today to feel free to put some questions that you might have that occurs to you as we're going through the conversation that you might be interested in hearing from our panel. The questions, if you want to enter them into the Q&A function here in the Zoom, we will go ahead and monitor those and try to get to as many of them as we can. We certainly often get overrun with questions, so please don't be concerned if we don't get to yours, but we'll try our very best because I know that you'll want to hear from our panel. And so with that, I will definitely get this going so that you can enjoy the information that you're about to hear this afternoon. And we'll just kick it off with having each of you perhaps introduce yourself and kind of tell us a little bit about why today is important, why it's important for us to be celebrating Black History Month, what that means to you. We'll start you with an easy question, right? That's a pretty big one. But with that, I'll go ahead and ask Chief Haynes from Fresno County to start us off.
And thank you so much, Karen. And thank you to all the Chiefs who are here with us today for taking time out of their busy Friday. And welcome to everybody who is joining us today. I'm Kirk Haynes, Chief Probation Officer in Fresno County. Been chief for going on 5 years now. So it's been a quick ride. It seems like it's going to be by really, really fast. But really, the reason why I think it's important that we recognize and we celebrate Black History Month, and I'm sure many of the chiefs that probably say something similar, but I know for me is the ability for us to recognize my heritage. When I think about my family, I think about those who have come before me. I always talk about standing on the shoulders of others. So many people who poured themselves into me as a young Black man and a young man as I came up. People took their time, and it wasn't just my mom or my dad, but it was uncles, aunts, teachers, coaches, people who really took the time to make sure that I was in the best position to be successful. And those were people that looked like me. And so it's important that as we do the work that we do and recognize folks in our community, that they see that us in leadership and even our officers and our staff that work with the people that we work with in our communities, that they understand that we're looked at in the same way as mentors or someone that they're looking to try to lift somebody else up. And so I think that's always a reminder this time of year for us to be able to remember that and to be comfortable in being able to be seen that way. So I think it's important for us to see that.
Appreciate you sharing that, Chief Haynes. So true. And mentorship is such a strong thread that kind of goes through all of the conversations it feels like I have with probation in general. And so it makes so much sense that, today would be today, this month, and, is a really good time to remind ourselves of that, because it is, things do get busy. As you said, 5 years went by really fast, and I would agree, it certainly did. Chief Nelson from San Diego, will you share with us next?
Absolutely. Thank you all. Thanks to the Chiefs, and very happy to be on the panel. So Chief Tamika Nelson from San Diego County. And what it means to me, I don't want to say, exactly what Chief Haynes said, but, we have to acknowledge all of the barriers that were broken before, I particularly arrived at this seat. And, recently I made a comment, you can't do it alone. So, by no stretch of the imagination did we get here, and that's on our own. We stand on the shoulders of those that came before us, whether that's your immediate family, all the way back to ancestors, and the barriers that they had to knock down and the struggles that they had to go through, and being, for lack of a cliche, but a dream realized. And so, what Black history means to me, I really truly believe it's something that you need to look at all year long, not just for Black History Month. But as a fan of history, I certainly love knowing how far it's come from Negro History Week to Black History Month, and how that's expanding into, things of education and celebration of diversity and different cultures, and more cultures being involved and wanting to know everyone's culture and everyone's history. But certainly to look beyond what it means as of late, is people looking beyond certainly that our history is just not slavery, and now here we are. There's so many nuances in between, and all the great accomplishments and accolades and culture, art, science, contributions that we've made throughout many different facets in our history. So that's what it means to me. This is a foundational reflection during this month of what it is, but certainly throughout the year, something to be looked at.
Great reminder, right? I mean, it isn't just a one-time thing, and it shouldn't be, but and that's why it is so great to have all of you at our table, and sharing all of that here today. Why don't we go ahead and move to Chief Yarber, Sacramento County next? Will you introduce yourself?
Sure, Chief Marlon Yarber, Sacramento County. Been chief since October 2021. Not that anyone's tracking the dates, but the jobs are challenging. Thank you and appreciate being here, part of the esteemed panel. It's always great to hear from each of them, and also the rest of our body, if you will, just the perspectives across our great state. For me, really echo much of what both Chief Haynes and Chief Nelson stated. When I think about Black History Month, it's really, akin to American history, and something we should celebrate regardless of, as I say, how ugly or sometimes painful it might be. Like it is our history, and it's important to both remember that and appreciate the transformations that have occurred. It's important to, not lose sight of both contributions as well as sacrifices that have been made. And certainly with respect to, again, Chief Haynes' reference to those that came before us, just, people who maybe had the ability, but maybe were met with, a barrier that prevented them from, achieving this position perhaps in a department. And so, I don't ever forget that, and always really just try to remember, you're here for a reason, and hopefully it's not just to be a good Black chief, but just to be a good chief. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Karen.
Well, I think you've already accomplished that, at least in my observation. You are a great chief, and we are lucky to have you, and appreciate you sharing those thoughts. Chief Tulloch from San Francisco, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what this month means to you?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to be here on this panel with especially the other chiefs today. Thank you, Karen, for inviting me. I'm just grateful to know that I stand on the shoulders of my ancestors, and that I feel responsible to reflect that knowledge in everything that I do. And, for Black History Month, of course, we originally picked this time during the shortest month of the year, but, it is critical for us to remind us all to just take a pause and really reflect on the tremendous and countless contributions that generations of Black people have made to this country and to the world. You know, science, literature, innovation, music, politics. I mean, we truly inspire and change the world. And, but yet we still need to be very intentional on taking space and occupying space to bring attention to us for ourselves and for the generations to come. Because if we don't tell the story and we don't honor the story and protect the story, no one else will. And if we allow someone else to do it, it's not going to be accurate. So that's why it's important to me that we celebrate this month. Thanks.
I love that, telling the story. I mean, that's exactly what we're trying to capture a little piece of here, especially as it relates to probation, as we'll kind of get into a little bit in some of the other questions. But yeah, if you don't tell the story and it is your story, you know, it isn't going to be accurate. We won't all be able to learn and experience it in the way that you guys can share that with us. And so I'm so glad to see how many people we have joining today as well. I mean, that's, you know, record numbers for us. And so really great to be able to dive into this. And I'm really pleased and just honored to be able to spend some time with you guys this afternoon, because I know you're all very, very busy. And speaking of being very, very busy, Chief Washington from Marin, I know you are always busy, but I'm really, really glad you're able to be here with us today.
Well, thank you. I'm Marlon Washington, the Chief Probation Officer in Marin County, and I've actually been a chief for 2.5 years now, because we were talking timelines. I actually think Black History Month is every month. What it is, I don't want to echo what everyone has said, but I share those same sentiments. I think it's really a time to spotlight and celebrate those achievements as well. So I try to use something that everyone didn't say. As we accomplish throughout the country, despite all racism and oppression. So I really think it's a time to truly educate everyone. So I always like to take this thing, because my brother sends these emails out weekly. Each one teach one. This is our opportunity to share our history. So if we can share one nugget today, I would say it's truly our time to educate. Each one teach one. And you guys should actually take a screenshot of today, and you see who's representing the Chiefs of California today.
What a great, inspiring way to kind of kick us off into some of the individual questions that we'll kind of get into now. And I know that's always hard to get started in some ways, because there was a lot of themes and familiarity between some of what it means to all of you. You know, it's very similar in many ways, but you all had individual journeys that brought you to being a chief, and kind of how those barriers were, you know, gone through, and, you know, what it kind of means and what that journey looks like. But Chief Haynes, I'm wondering if you could share with us that journey for you, and just, you know, how did you become chief, and what inspired you to go down this path?
You know, good question. You know, as I think about it, it is long before I worked for the probation department. I think the journey that, for me anyway, was one, you know, I grew up in Southwest Fresno, went to Edison High School here in Fresno, which was, you know, it's you know, what you would say with the school in the hood, you know, kind of thing that it was. Great school. And it's a family school. My dad went to Edison High School back in the, you know, graduated back in 1948. And so, you know, there's a tradition, a part of me attending there, and much of my family. But I think what's important about my journey, when I think about going back that far, is that so many of the people that I grew up with, so many people in my my circle of friends and family, are people that many people that we supervise in our caseloads down. Folks who, you know, had I taken a different path, it probably I wouldn't have had a much different life than some folks who, are involved in the criminal justice system. I attribute where I am now to so many more people than just me, because it was, family. And like I said before, about so many supports that I had in my space that made sure that I was where I needed to be, and when I wasn't where I needed to be, somebody was there to show me, how to get where I needed to go. So I think that's important when I think about, how it is that I came to be to this point, because, I was in the military, joined the Marine Corps shortly after, high school. I went to college for a year or so, flunked out, messing around. Again, one of those learning opportunities, at Fresno State, and was just not doing what I needed to do until somebody got in my butt and said, look, you need to get it together. And joining the military was the route for me. And thank God for it. It really did give me some discipline. It gave me a new perspective on what the world really looks like. There's nothing that replicates that experience in regular life. And so it's something that I've carried with me. And after I, finished and did some reserve work, went to Oregon, I graduated from the University of Oregon, and then ended up coming back home to work for the county. And 28 years later, here, and really hopeful that, setting the example for others to be able to follow a path that was laid out for me. But it certainly was not a traditional path. It was one that was fraught with a lot of, falls and elbow scrapes and bloody noses, all these different things that had happened. But I think the reason why that journey is important is because beyond any barriers that I had, I was able to get up, and to be able to get up with someone else to be able to show me the way to get there. Never had an intent on being chief. I just wanted to, I remember I was so happy when I became a DPO4. That was kind of like a lead. And I was like, you know what? The world is good. If I can be just a DPO4, it was all good. But no, there was, some other things that we had in our path that we wanted to move forward. And talking about mentorship and those kind of things, someone put me under their wing and brought me along. And so that was the path, at least for me. And it's an important one because as I try to give back to where I came from and try to have those connections back with people that cared about me, I try to make sure that I remember that, and that staff also remember that they came from very similar backgrounds that I did. When Fresno, it's a rural place, and so a lot of rural towns where a lot of our officers come from. And so they understand what it is to work in the fields, to do, a lot of this stuff. We weren't always, sitting at a desk. And so to be able to work hard and to appreciate what you have now, I think it's important, as all of us have come on that journey.
I love that I learned something new about all of you during these conversations. I'm trying not to let my surprise, get away from me in some of these answers that you all share. And this is true in a lot of the conversations. So really appreciate you kind of being so open. And it's also a familiar story, right? It's not always a very straight path to probation. And sometimes I'm wondering if that maybe makes you a better probation officer, because in many ways, that's exactly, you have some empathy in understanding the struggle that many of the folks that we supervise, might be going through. So
I think that's important for people to feel vulnerable enough to be able to, you don't have to get all into your own, personal business, but at least to be able to, when we are sharing with people, and I know when I was a field deputy, was to let people know that, yeah, it's a struggle, just life, even on the best days, it's not easy, right? Raising kids and, making sure that the bills are paid and, all those things that are out of your control. Those are the things that we, our clients deal with, exactly those kind of things. And so oftentimes the best way for me to really interact with someone, or for us to kind of get on the same page, was to let them know that, man, I'm dealing with a lot of the same things that you are, And so this is how, I was able to deal with those. And so I think when adults can talk in that kind of way, because that's what a man to man or a woman to man, those are the kind of things and real conversations that can be had.
Super interesting. I appreciate that. We have asked a couple of questions in advance, but we also, as we said, want to try to take some questions from the audience as well. And one kind of stands out to me at this point. I want to throw in here for all of you. So please feel free to jump in. Anyone who might want to take a stab at it. But as a supervisor, what can I do to celebrate the diversity in the workplace and help educate my staff? Have you kind of come across, either something you've done in the past or seen done that might be helpful for a supervisor to, kind of have those conversations or to bring that to light with their staff?
I'll take a stab at that. The fact is that you asked the question, you're already taking a step. And so, if you don't have curiosity about it, then you're not, it's almost like you're not inviting that opportunity to educate your staff, educate yourself, and bringing in diversity in. So asking the question is a great start. And making connections, looking to your coworkers, your peers, people in the community and saying, hey, I would like to bring in some education for staff. I'm a little bit biased in the fact that I think food is the great, the great, way to open up a conversation. So, if you go and, maybe have a meeting at one of your local restaurants, but make it intentional that you don't go to the usual spots and maybe like some, mom and pops or, I just learned here in San Diego of a barbecue place. I saw it on the news because they're highlighting all these local Black-owned businesses on the news for the month of February. So I'm taking pictures with my phone because I'm certainly looking for a good barbecue spot. And there's a great debate on the best barbecue in San Diego. So I'm willing to try them all. But, for me, that's okay. But then take someone who may not have experienced that with me and just to have a conversation. And I think it doesn't have to be a formal conversation. I think Chief Tulak talked about those uncomfortable conversations, and you have to just be willing, and that education piece starts there. But if you also want some more in-depth formal, reach out to maybe some schools, some organizations around you that provide some of those cultural perspectives from different cultures in your area, and ask them to come in and sit down and talk about Black history. You shouldn't get all your Black history from this Chiefs webinar and what it means. Reach out locally. There's somebody there, no matter, what county you may be from. And again, with the news, I even learned, I think it was in El Dorado County, about, a gold mining town that was predominantly Black. I had no idea. And so they're doing some research and trying to get that out there. So, look to your local organizations, look to local schools. They are out there. And if they're not in your community, there are people in communities next door that would love to come in and have a conversation with you and staff about cultural diversity and those opportunities in your areas.
I love that. And I'm very much all for, food being the love language and the education language in which we can kind of reach those heights. So I appreciate that. It's a great question. I want to point the next question to you, Chief Washington. What do you think are some of the unique challenges that Black leaders face in the workplace? And how have you overcome or navigated those in your career?
Well, that's an excellent question, because I feel that it's very unique to every individual situation. We're often met with various challenges. So when I was appointed, I knew I was accepting a call for leadership, which I love. but I knew at some point I would be misunderstood. I knew I would be criticized, opposed, accused, even probably rejected at some times. But you have to learn how to navigate the political landscape. You actually have to take the leadership position and understand that you are a catalyst for the next person to have an opportunity. So with that, I take it as it's not only for me being a chief, but it's actually for everyone behind me to become a chief. And I think we have to actually build our credibility. We have basically disadvantages a lot of times because we don't have that many mentors. I was fortunate to have Chief Keene as well as Chief Haynes when I became actually a chief. But the fact is, we don't have those organic mentorship, coaching, and different opportunities. So I think those are barriers that are created for us. Also, if you do studies, there's so many things about Black professionals having different barriers they have to face. We have to understand our temperament and how we show up, how we actually can influence individuals, how we may be misinterpreted, understanding microaggressions of basically always trying to be jovial and positive, and sometimes there's accountability measures. Sometimes you have to be really direct and firm, but oftentimes people might say, oh, that's a display of anger when you're being very firm. So you have to be very mindful, and all of those are barriers. If we notice during this last couple years with the social unrest, there was a lot more hiring of people of color into positions. And do we want to associate that with the challenges of the community or not? But it makes it very unique, those challenges, because if you aren't successful, you're moved on or you're replaced. And those are different things. So you're balancing so many different things. And I think those are challenges for everyone to overcome as a Black leader. And those are challenges because you have to build trust. People have to believe in you. You have to be educated. Oftentimes people feel you might lack certain intelligence. They might feel that you don't articulate things a certain way. Are you polished or eloquent? These are all the things that we face in every day just trying to do our job. So it's very interesting because there's a list of things. There's so much literature out there for an African American, a Black in a leadership role that you take on. So those are challenges that you will face in the workplace on a daily basis. And you're often misunderstood. And that's one of the things, is that you're hoping that people can learn you, get to know you, trust you, because trust is something that takes a long time to gain. And it's so easily in 1 second can be taken away. So I hope that answers your question, but those are the challenges we face.
It does. And, it really occurs to me how much pressure all of you have had to bear, in just achieving what you have in your career. And hopefully as people are listening to that, they recognize that, and also as perhaps going through some of those same pressures, recognize that that they're not alone, and that you are all very accomplished people, and leaned on as leaders in your field as chiefs, and that's a really great thing. And so I so appreciate you sharing that with all of us, because I think that's got to be something that probably all of you on this panel would agree with. It's something that you have to be really mindful of, and that is definitely difficult.
And Karen,
I would say,
I'm sorry.
Great. I wanted just to say we have to be resilient, and people will say that term is often used or misused, and we have to be able to adapt, because our whole goal is to affect change. And so that's the whole thing, is understanding that piece. Sorry about that, Chief Nelson.
It's okay. I was just going to add to Chief Washington's point, particularly for me and Chief Tulop, add on that being the first woman. And so that comes with additional pressures and weights on top of that. So, and it definitely is a balance, because you have to be everything to everybody, and I don't know culturally. I do know historically, culturally, if something that a Black person did was negative, then it reflected on the whole community. And so, have we come far enough where we can be in society and say, no, that was that one person. That's not a reflection of the whole community. But as chiefs, and some of us, first time people of color, first time Black people, first time, women in our positions, what I always say, do we have the luxury of grace? Do we have the luxury to mess up? Because we are not gods. We are human. We make mistakes. And so it comes with all of those weights. But do we have those same luxuries so we do not basically create a disadvantage for others and say, oh, we gave it a try, but look how look what happened, and ruin it for others? So those are weights that are on my mind. I do try to kind of reject them a bit, to say, no, we're going to move past this. I'm not going to keep that weight, understanding that we are not perfect. We're doing the best with what we can, but also with the trust that Chief Washington mentioned, we have a longer journey to achieve trust if the people who put you in these positions haven't had the exposure to those, and to people of diverse backgrounds, because it's all of those things that Chief Washington said. And so it's just like you are having to learn different cultures to acclimate to the position. Then it's like you need to also learn this culture in order to acclimate to us as well, and trust us that we, our resumes aren't made up. We are qualified, we are educated, and as my brother Chief Marlon Yarber, we are lived experience. We are lived experience, and we, despite what rumors or negativity that may be out there, we didn't get these positions because just let me put the Black person in the position to quiet the community, because there's no way that because we are Black, we are holding these positions for as long as we are holding them. We know what we are doing. So.
Hey, Karen, let me jump in too. I get the feeling like you probably could have just asked this question and we might have gone for an hour and a half or so. Chief Nelson hit a few points that just stood out to me, and in my mind, if I'm truly being honest, and I think, I may speak for the rest of the panel, there's always this little kernel of fear in the back of your mind around, the mistake that I make, because there will be mistakes, right? Like all of the chiefs, we always talk about that. Like you imagine the number of times we've gotten it wrong. You may only see the times we get it right, but with the mistake that someone might attribute it to our race, and letting that be the thing. And it's like, you have to, I think what she said, you have to push it out of your mind. And I completely agree. You have to really kind of push it out of your mind and really stay focused on the job at hand, and stay focused on, what I always say are like the superpowers that we have, the ability to walk in all sorts of settings and communicate with people at every level, from our communities all the way up through our, highest elected officials, and be able to communicate what we see in regards to the change that we want to affect. And so I just wanted to build on that point because it resonates so well. And before I forget, a shout out to Stockton, because both Chief Nelson and I were little kids, next door neighbors on the same street in Stockton, California.
Whoa. Something good in the water there.
Karen, I want to say something.
Please.
Thank you, Chief Nelson. And it's such an honor and privilege to be in partnership with you. And, our relationship is so important, not only because we're the only two in the whole state, but because of our opportunity to really model that, that Black girl magic, that sisterhood that is just genuine and unique. Like, we truly support each other. And I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate all the comments. And it is so real to hold that responsibility and know that the measuring stick that you're being judged by is so incredibly different. And the way that it comes forward sometimes is it's just mind-blowing. You know, we're not here, but it's not a fluke that we're here. I love those comments, because the coded language and the microaggressions and the added responsibility of knowing that you're one of the few and only, you know, really could paralyze you sometimes. And it's so important to have the support and the network. Like, this panel is not unfamiliar with each other. We spend a lot of time together. And so it's so invaluable to have that companionship, to be able to just be real with and vulnerable with, in order to make sure that we individually in our agencies thrive. So I just wanted to add that.
Karen, I can't not.
I was going to say, please.
First, I want to say about that Black Girl Magic. I've raised girls. I got 4 girls, and to be able to see Chief Tulloch and Chief Nelson, where they are in, you know, some of the biggest counties population-wise in the state, and just rocking it, doing a great job where they are. It's incredible, and it is not surprising when I see and know both of them. And then, you know, to be able to sit on this panel with all 5 of us here, having experienced much of the same kinds of things in our counties. And, you know, not only are we, you know, just the Black chiefs, and I know Chief King he couldn't be here today with us today, but one of the other things that in Fresno, I am the only Black department head in Fresno County. And so, you know, you think about what does that even look like, and how, when we look at, you know, potential mistakes, because all of us are going to be judged in a way, and it's just because of the familiarity of having us in these positions. And so I think it's important, as it's already been very well articulated, that that we stand on our own, stand on the expertise that we do have. We wouldn't be in these positions if we were not qualified to be able to do them. And I think we bring a unique perspective to the work that we do, because we can walk in so many of these spaces. And so, you know, I just wanted to say that, and to just give props to my people.
And Karen, I just wanted to jump in and circle back to this. It's one of the things that I wanted to share. But Senator Cory Booker, and he spoke to the historical nature of Supreme Court nominee Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson when she was coming into office. And he spoke to this, and it's one of those things, like right now, and I'll say this is like joyful right here. This is a joyful occasion, and we don't want anyone to steal our joy in our positions, and we celebrate each and every one of us every time we get together at a quarterly. And we let our work speak for ourselves. So I think that's very important. And if anyone out there hasn't had the opportunity to listen to that, it's one of those things, is where do you see people of color at when you walk into your building? Like Chief Haynes just said, being the only department head of color. When you walk in there, it's a different feeling. But at the end of work, guess how many people you see? Or if you show up early, how many people do you see that looks like you? So I would just say, take the 19 minutes and 54 seconds to listen to his speech and how he actually charted that and said no one would ever steal his joy. So I think we are fortunate, and we are all blessed to be in these positions, and we don't take it lightly.
I almost feel like I should just say, you guys should just unmute, because you're really building so well off of each other in such a meaningful way. And obviously, some of the comments that we're receiving from the listeners are kind of also expressing that. It's really inspirational, and it's I'm so glad that we're recording this because we're capturing a little bit of magic, it feels like, here today. So that's really exciting. As you kind of think through some of that, and we've talked a little bit about, some of the journey that got you here, some of the journey that you're still on, how do you attract people to this profession? And that's really kind of as a broad topic, right? I know we've been talking a lot about around our table, just in general, how we bring people to the profession. It's important. It's important work. It's tough right now. But how do you bring people to the profession that reflect you and really the values that you're sharing here today? I'm sure there are a lot of people on this webinar who are desperately trying to recruit the right people to be in these positions. Just with the thoughts of what we're talking about here today, any thoughts on that? Any suggestions?
I'll take a stab at it, Karen.
Go ahead, Chief.
You think about all the media attention to just some terrible things that have happened in our country, right? Basically, peace officers in our country who are criminals, who should be held accountable, who do not represent our values, who don't represent who we are, whether it be probation or police or deputy sheriffs. But that reflection, I think, has led just generally to the reason why it's been harder to be able to recruit folks into our profession right now. I think that's got some to do with that. I think as the things happened with George Floyd, and you had a cohort of young people that were in college and going through that process during that time. Normally, that would kind of be the people that we'd be reaching out to bring into our ranks right now, but they just aren't there. And talking with our local universities and those kind of things, even in our criminology kind of programs that are there, the enrollment is low in those programs now. And I could attribute it to some of those things. But what I've tried to do is to let people of color know that we need them here to be a part of the solution. I have a juvenile hall that we have about 100 kids in our juvenile hall right now. 25% of those kids are Black young men in my hall. About 25% of the population, while we represent about 4 to 5% of the population in Fresno County. And so you think about why that is, and it's multiple factors as to the reasons why. But I need staff here who understand what it is for a young Black man to have to survive and to have to live in a community like Fresno. We talk about how young Black men get that talk from their parents about, okay, when you're gonna have an interaction with law enforcement, this is what you do, this is what you don't do, all those kinds of things that are happening. We try to do those kind of things with the staff that I do have. We've got a great program called the Troy program that I have. One of my supervising juvenile correctional officers has his own CBO, and he recently separated from the department, but so that he could run it. But part of the programming that he was doing for us in one of our units was to talk about those kind of things with our young men. And so we need that staff who have that kind of life experience that can connect with our people. And oftentimes that means going to churches, going to community groups, stepping outside of those normal places where we would normally do recruiting. We need to go into those kind of spaces. So I think it's important for us to be able to do that, just so that we can try to bridge that gap, because I'm hopeful that this is just a short-term problem that we have, but I think we have to be really intentional about how do we seek out those potentials.
Karen, I would add that we really have to put it out there that we are what people are thinking about when they think about criminal justice reform. And, we really have to invest in getting that message out. So we were speaking to people who want to work in law enforcement, but really don't want to be a part of, all the negative that's been happening. Really pushing how we bring that balance, because we have so many services, and we really work with family, we really work deeply in community, we really do care about our clients, the people who are in our care, and putting that forward more is one of the ways that we could attract people who are really into social justice reform and really into thinking about different approaches that we could take to help people truly restore their lives.
Yeah, I'll
Please.
weigh in as well. No, just I always message when I'm involved in like our recruitment events, like, people talk about, oh, I want to give back to the community. And I always say there's no better place to give back than to become a probation officer. Like, come work with us. That's the work we are doing. It reminds me really kind of back to when, I was maybe, 18, 19 years old. I used to always remark in my family, to my dad, who was a correctional officer. I used to remark to him, why there were so many people in our family. Like, there was just as many on this side who had a badge as there were on this side who were maybe behind the bars. And, as I, got older, went to school, now entered the profession, and looking back to, what were the reasons for that, and what were the factors that maybe contributed? Sometimes even in the same household, brother went this way, other brother went that way. And, dissecting whether it was, economy and jobs, or, whichever drug epidemic you want to cite, or, sometimes family trauma, or, mental illness. Like, there are all sorts of factors when you start to peel it back. And so, I remember, again, at that age, having a lot to say about the system, and, kind of challenging it. And why is it that, we're always locked up? And, the family members, the older family members who are on that side of the badge would say, well, once you live a little more, you'll understand a little more around both the decisions as well as the factors that may have contributed to it. And so I was also then kind of challenged with, you have so much to say about this. Why don't you do something about it? Instead of just being critical, and as I always say, like lobbing the grenade into the, the crowd, like, why don't you actually, pursue employment in this field? And if you, can see the change you think you want to create, you can do something about it. And so that really kind of became the personal challenge or motivation for me to enter the field to begin with. And so, again, whenever I'm recruiting, I message that to young people all the time, particularly people of color who come from the communities that are overrepresented, in my juvenile hall and in our jail here in Sacramento County. Like, here is a way you can be about the solution. You can actually help affect the change.
Of course, we were going to probably all add something, Karen, but, thank you. But similarly to what Chief Yarber saying, but on top of that, representation. So, the fact that, Chief Washington, when he comes in and he has, Chief Haynes and Chief King, but who did they see before them? And, and now, even now still, I get San Diego's a large county, and I still kind of love living in somewhat obscurity and anonymity, not because I change hairstyles quite often, but but that I can walk around and it's still a shock that I'm the chief. And then, but I see a face change, like, what? Oh, you're the chief? You mean I can be in this field? Absolutely. So you can be, kicked out of college, or you fail a class, you can get in a fight at school and get suspended. and you can have all these things. You can come from a family where, part is doing well and part are part of the system, and be a part of the probation family. And I think we have to do better as far as letting our community know, with everything going on with law enforcement, letting people know who probation is, but also Chief Tulloch really hit it on the head when she's talking about reform. I think people think of advocacy and think that has nothing to do with probation. And probation are true advocates for our community. We want to help our communities. We provide a bunch of services for our community. You can work in this field and have different kinds of background and do the good work, which is basically love. And, I'm very spiritual. So, when they talk about, God's biggest, connection or how he shows is through love. And so, probation truly loves their community. That's just not something that I just kind of fall back on. I have a true love of my community, and that's why I work in this field. And it's because I am an advocate. I want to help those who come before our doors. I want to help people not come to our doors. And we can do that here, being the experts and, with diversion and connection and linkage and all of those good things. But we have to see us here. Chief Haynes made a great point. When your halls or even your populations on community supervision is 70% people of color, but the community is not 70% people of color, you have a real issue and it needs to be addressed. And if you want to be part of the solution, then come join and be part of the solution and help us in that fight.
I appreciate that. That is really kind of good call to action right there. And perhaps the recruitment speech that we should all be kind of taking in our back pockets to, communities and, colleges and any place that we can get folks to listen. It does seem like this generation, although it's not probably totally different generations, but, kids don't want to just have a job, a career. They really want to make a difference. And it does seem like, whether it's in the micro with that one person, one-to-one, on your caseload, or the system in general, it just seems to me like there's no better place to do it, as you've all said, but within probation. So hopefully we will, get past some of those barriers and be able to continue to recruit folks to this wonderful profession. Couple of other questions, but we'll throw another one out there. And again, hopefully folks will jump right in and, answer. What are your hopes for the future of the diversity and equity and inclusion in probation? We've had quite a few questions come in from the audience that kind of are buzzing around that, I think, concept in general. Like what do you hope, like where we are today? We've talked a little bit about some of the challenges. I'm sure it's not going to be fixed overnight, but what are some of your hopes for probation in that realm of inclusivity?
Well, I would love to jump on this one. The thing is, we all focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I add belonging to that. So you'll see DEIB. But first, it's understanding the diversity part. And oftentimes people think you can transform a team by just diversifying a team. It's about diversity in thought and also the quality candidates that you actually have. And it's your environment. So your diversity is focused on your environment. Then you have to look at equity. So I'm looking at them all individually. Equity is giving everyone the same opportunity to advance in their career and similar opportunities, because oftentimes it's not equitable. So that's something that you want to look at, as well as inclusion. Are we being treated fairly? And what's going on? And lastly is belonging. Is there a sense of belonging and accepting and wanting people to be there? And that's very important to everything we do. So here in Marin County, I was fortunate to be the facilitator and the developer of our Marin mentorship program. And we created 2 pathways, one pathway for promotional opportunities and one pathway for individuals in their first 2 years. And the focus was for the affinity groups, or we say resource groups, but basically all the different affinity groups, because we notice in our county, a lot of people are leaving the county, for non-retirement reasons. And so there's no sense of belonging. So we can diversify, we could look at the equity, and we could look at inclusion, but if we don't even address the belonging, then we miss something. So I think it's important to be inclusive of all of those for the future of probation.
Wow. That's a little bit of a mic drop, Chief Washington. And I can see your fellow colleagues doing exactly what I'm doing and writing that down. Belonging is the thing that seems to be missing from this conversation. And that's what could undermine, if you don't address it, any advancement in the rest of the inclusivity issues that we're all grappling with, right? I mean, just understanding we need more of that and understanding more of how to do that. But if people don't feel like they're belonging in that conversation, what good are you doing? You're not moving the ball forward. That's really amazing. Love that. Other thoughts around kind of your hopes for the future, what you're seeing, or ways to kind of increase. All right, I know you guys have given us a lot in this hour. It was jam-packed. You were ready out of the gate with a lot of good things. So we'll go to another question, because we're getting a lot of good ones also from the audience. There was, I think, some conversation just a moment ago too about how, whether it's with recruiting or just kind of getting people to understand the importance of the work that we do, and that there shouldn't be that shock factor, and wait, you're the chief, how do we kind of get rid of that? And it's not just within our organizations, which there's definitely a lot to be grappled with, and I think you've all touched a little bit on that, but how do we get the community also to see that, and getting out there and telling your story? Are there ways in which you would suggest folks who are in probation right now, do that? And are there things that you have done that you've seen some success with?
Well, it's complicated. And I bring this up, and it certainly have brought it up. I know CPOC's doing some more things about getting our message out there about who we are and what is probation. People are still confused about what probation is. I'll still get emails, this client of this, I'm like, that's parole, that's not probation. So people are still confused about what probation is. And an unfortunate, the biggest way to get who we are out there and open more doors, we don't have an opportunity for. I wish there was a show about probation, but you got the Law and Order franchise, and now there's one about animal control, and I'm like, nobody can make a show about probation. Come on, there's got to be something out there just to get us into living rooms to talk about it. But we also have to be quite intentional. And, whether that's chiefs or definitely our staff, about getting out in the community and telling people who we are. We have to tell our story. Chief Tulloch already touched on this. We have to tell our story. Nobody knows our story like we do. And so we have to do that, whether that's through social media, if you have those kind of resources, social media, regular media, newspaper. I know a lot of things are online, but you also have to be one, intergenerational. You have to meet people where they're at in their level of comfortability. Some people still like paper. Some people get all their news from TMZ, whatever. You have to reach across all kind of avenues, and we have to be out there telling our story. Another way is through the people that we work with, our collaborative partners. Having them brag about you, because the great relationships we have, our clients telling people about us, it really is almost like a grassroots campaign. And while we are not a political organization. We are very political organizations. We don't get elected, but you have to navigate in those realms, in that you need to politic out in the community and say, this is who we are, this is why we're fabulous, and this is how we help, and if you need anything, call us, and, be that first communication and be that positive contact in the community. So those are just ways that you can do that with in any kind of avenue. If you're at the grocery store, whatever, and I have I was trying not to be creepy, but I was recently coming back, and I believe it was from a CPOC event, and I was on a plane, and I overheard a young lady, and her mother, she had a UCSD sweatshirt on. So I was immediately intrigued, because that's my alma mater. And she was like, oh yeah, we got to go so you can go do this college tour. And so I stopped them and I said, excuse me, are you going to go do a college tour at UCSD? She said, yeah, we're touring to see where she wants to go. And I said, not being creepy, but I gave her my card and I said, if you choose to stay in the area, I said, I went to that school, but if you choose to stay in this area, call me. You have a contact here in San Diego. So we have to take those opportunities wherever, I tend to do it on airplanes because I'm like, you can't go nowhere. But take those opportunities to say, hey, this is who we are and this is what we're about.
I'm really hoping that people didn't just listen, aren't multitasking, and didn't just heard, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be creepy to do some recruitment. So that's not what Chief Nelson was saying, but we
have to be not creepy, but we have to be our biggest hype man. We have to be our biggest cheerleaders, and we have to recruit hype man out there for us to say probation is awesome and probation is everything. So
yeah, exactly. Find your pockets where you can. Captive audiences on an airplane or elsewhere. That makes sense. Chief Yarber, do you have?
I agree. We don't want to be creepy. But a few things, because it's one thing at our level. Like, again, I think I speak for all of us here. Like, I got to show up to the event on the Friday night when I'm exhausted and it's a bunch of people that I don't really, know well. Some I might not even like, but I got to do it because I represent so much. And it's really about, again, putting probation's face out there so that folks know, one, it's me. But two, there's a whole army of folks behind me, and you need to recognize the value that we bring to the community. And so, I try not to ever lose sight of why that's important, even when I'm exhausted. And again, I know I speak for all of you as well. But then at the other end, it's also, it's sometimes a challenge. And I think some of our younger generation, our younger staff are getting better with this, certainly more energetic when it comes to the Friday night events for sure. But it's getting them also to participate in those community events and represent the department, and be proud that we wear the badge and the gun, and that we carry this role and this ability to both hold accountable and provide opportunity. Like, we should be talking about that. I think that's important. A big part of our message that is sometimes lost, and sometimes the anonymity or the discretion that we like to think we have sometimes as officers, and not letting people know what we do. Like, we need to just come to grips with, hey, this is who we are and what we're about. So, I think that's important. And then the third thing, I said there were a few things, correcting the record. Whenever, someone else say, oh, we do this, or we have youth services, or, we connect people to, re-entry. Like, no, folks. There's only one entity that does those things and does them well, has always done them, and that's us. And so just being very clear with whoever it is when they think they, can do what we're doing.
I think that probation is the nicest, or some of the nicest people in this entire world. I've worked in this, representing you for several years, and no one will disabuse me of that thought. But I think you are giving people a really important point here: the permission to be unapologetically truthful in what it is that you do. And please take that. Yeah.
Really good points from Chief Yarber. I didn't get get to come to the chief call this morning because I was at a community event. It's a collaborative that we have every couple of months, Cradle to Career. And there are a lot of our community partners that are at this meeting. And so we were doing a presentation on collaborative leadership and talking about kind of my journey, since I've been chief, some of the work that we've done to try to bring unity to the ranks and those kind of things. But it was a really good chance for us to really showcase the work that we do. And a lot of it is the work that we've done at the CPOC table, and that things that I brought home to Fresno. And so, to have those kind of opportunities to be able to talk. And, one of my big talking points has been around the work that I have tried to do upstream from where we are, because, we're, down at our far end of this continuum where our people are in juvenile hall, or if they're in our supervision, or they're in state prison, we're involved with those folks because they have traveled through all of these other checkpoints along the way, whereas many of our partners have provided services to them. And so this is, I have these conversations around, and I really do it respectfully. I try not to step on toes, but, really to let people know that our clients, our common clients have been in your spaces, and what can we be doing together to make sure that they don't make it all the way through, penetrating even further. And so those are the, kind of conversations that I think we have a unique opportunity to be able to have, because nobody else lives in this space, right? Cops don't, deputy sheriffs don't, DSS doesn't, DBH doesn't. We live in these unique places where I use that connector puzzle, kind of analogy with them as well, Karen. So, those are the really big kind of things that I try to do when I have that audience. And it's often when we get a chance to talk about things that we talk about all the time, but folks just don't ever hear it unless we have those chances to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree that in circles here in San Francisco, as collaboratives are coming together, in addition to the campaign of what probation is and what we do and how we do it, I'm often putting in the missed opportunity that, happened where probation could have been very helpful with this initiative. And, probation is able to do A, B, and C, because I think it's one thing for them to understand who we are, but helping them along and figuring out what to do with us is really impactful as well. And I've had a lot of success of getting our department at different tables just by saying, well, probation could really aid this by doing this. Chief Miracle, I'm going to chop up what he said, but it was so poignant in one of our meetings when he talked about our skill set and how unique our skill set is and how versatile it is, how we could function anywhere. And he described that, what we are looking for is someone who could negotiate with the lawyer, someone who could effect a warrant at someone's house, and at the same time convince that person that they're really trying to impact their lives. And so that's what our staff represent. We have to find all of those qualities in one person. And when we do that successfully, we're able to be such an impactful partner locally and just throughout the state and representing our profession and bringing value to what we do.
Gosh, this is not fair. Give me such goosebumps here on a Friday afternoon. I'm loving this conversation, and I can tell again by the comments, I think a lot of our folks listening are as well. Again, we had asked for a lot of thought ahead of this event, and just as to what kind of questions we may ask of you. I want to get back to a few of those, just in case we haven't missed something. I feel like you guys have hit on a lot of probably the topics you wanted to, but I think it was mentioned about get out there on social media, tell our story, go to some of these events. But some people also kind of bringing us back to the whole diversity discussion and why we're here specifically today in the conversation. And Chief Tulloch, we had kind of asked, if you had some people like to read, some people like to research, some people like to kind of think through some of these things. Do you have any articles or books or steps that you would recommend for someone who might be new to navigating the probation field, or things along the lines of diversity? That's another issue that we want to be sure, like, there's a lot of great reads out there, a lot of great resources that we may want to, kind of give to folks who are listening today.
Sure. I think I would take it more from an approach of steps or tools, things that if you're new to this field, what to think about. Our work is so relational. Like, this probation work is so relational with our clients and with each other professionally, and it's really important to build relationships and to network. And I would suggest to anyone new to probation that they should, subscribe to newsletters, look for associations related, join groups, join organizations that touch our population and our profession. And some of those organizations aren't always friendly to us because they don't fully understand our work. But when we're in those circles, we bring that forward. And that's what a lot of what we've been talking about today. But it's just important to know how community sees you and sees us in this work. So again, joining groups, follow CPOC, go to the CPOC website, subscribe, get the newsletters, join, subscribe to APPA, like the local law enforcement organizations and affinity groups like Noble, and just learn about the political landscape in your local jurisdiction. And, really just focus on understanding the personalities of your court, start a LinkedIn account, just really be visible and really just saturate yourself in understanding the dynamics of the landscape to help you formulate how you want to hone and develop yourself within this profession. There's so much literature out there. There's so many people interested in what we do. There's so much research to follow, and taking advantage of that is really important. I think it's also very critical for someone new in this profession, just to know that. So for me, I've been in my department for almost 25 years. And, as I was going through this process of interviewing for the chief position, more than once it was said to me that the fact that my reputation sustained in one place after so many years really gave the court confidence and appointed me to this position. So another rule of advice: protect your name, protect your reputation, because people do remember and it does follow you. It's definitely better to be known as that person that walks around with a smile than being known as a person that's, walking around not looking so happy. So, there's just so many people. It's so important because so many people do damage to their own career because, their reputation is not of being positive and uplifting. It's because of being negative and difficult. And once you get labeled that, it's really hard to come back. So to a new probation officer out there, I just suggest that, you really take pride in what you do and let your name lead, be the lead of how people describe you. And some of the other things that I would think about is that reputation that you carry with you will make the difference between you getting the next promotion or not. And it's something that happens in all organizations. And if you are really invested in yourself, because your department's not going to be able to provide you all of the professional development you need. We're not going to be able to provide you all the training, all of that you may need in order to get to the next step. So it's okay to invest in yourself. It's very valuable to connect yourself with people that are like-minded in your profession, that are as ambitious as you, that really want to make a positive difference in the work. Connect yourself with those people and build with those people and follow each other's careers. I have this term that I use, a professional companion. And I have a professional companion that I've had for many years. And it's just someone that is in alignment with you, that is as invested in you as you are in your own career to move forward and excel. And that person is someone that you rely on as your confidant and as a person that you partner with as you move through your career. I think people really benefit when they're surrounded by people who are encouraging them and who are keeping them on the positive throughout their career. The last thing I'll say to that is, always remember that first day that you got called for this job, how excited you were. When I got the call to be a DPO, I was working at UC Berkeley, and I was on the phone standing in the stairwell when I got the offer, and I was just so happy. And then I started the job, and I had a lot of difficult days, and just recalling that day really helped me get through some difficult times in my career and to keep me on the positive. So that's all I offered to that question.
Oh, that's a lot. And I'm sure everybody appreciates that. And thankfully, because we're recording this, when you're having those bad days, people should rewatch this, because this is going to give them a little bit of hope and remind them why, the work is important and you're not alone in some of that. Along those lines, this is a question that comes up in almost every chief panel that I've been a part of. It's really, I think, an important one, and it kind of says a lot that it does come up this much from our staff. And so I'm sure you all are grappling with it. And it's, how do you practice self-care to ensure your mental health is a priority? So this is something that's important. It's something I know we talk about in our office too. And so curious if folks have some thoughts that they're willing to share and be as frank about on that topic as you have been on some of the other things today.
The guru of self-care is not on this call.
That's true.
And that's Chief Hansen out of Solano County. And so basically listening to what Chief Hansen tells us. But on top of that, I would say it is very difficult to practice self-care. And, for a lot of reasons. For my staff in particular, I know we're all facing it with staff shortages and overtime. And, I almost feel a guilt, like I don't deserve this because my staff are working, they're pulling doubles, they're working overtime. I can't give them a vacation and all of those things that come. But I also remember, if I drop dead, for lack of a better term, I'm no good to anyone. And, my biggest thing is I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve my staff, who will then serve their staff, who will then serve their staff and the community. So my intention in serving my staff, the unintended benefit is that they will serve the community, but I cannot serve my staff if I'm not 100%. So then in balancing that self-care, you do have to take that time and you figure out what that means to you. If that's vacations, that's vacations. If it's meditating, it's meditating. If it's prayer, it's journaling. You need to decide what that means to you. I did take some time off around November, where I said, 2 weeks off, I got it. And that's also, you can practice self-care when you build a trusted team. So I don't have to worry about anything. I know my team has it. So make sure you build a trusted team. Chief Tulloch talked about that as far as being a new person coming in. That applies if you're any staff working in the probation department. Build a trusted team. Build that kind of team support so that if you need time, if you need to take a break, they got you no matter what. So, take those time, take those moments, do what brings you joy, because, and I believe it was Chief Hansen, but if not, the job cannot be your everything. And I know sometimes it is. People, they work long hours. You might meet your significant other through work. You build friendships through work, and it's just kind of naturally, but the job cannot be your everything. And so find those joys outside of the job and make sure that you practice those, whether that's Netflix at home, taking a walk, exercise, whatever brings you joy. Take that time. Whatever your self-care ritual is, do that. Another point is, I know with the pandemic, we all started depending on technology, Zoom and meetings. And they were like, oh, that's more convenient. But people then started stacking meetings right next to each other. They didn't even build time for breaks to go to the bathroom. So that, oh, you can meet 10 times. Well, no, I need to use the bathroom. And so while it's a more convenient technology, you still have to, my point is, schedule your self-care. Because if you do not, you will not do it. So be intentional about your time, be intentional about your scheduling. Busy work does not mean getting work done. So be intentional with your time. In those meetings, be intentional about what needs to get done so that you can balance that and say, you know what, I have self-care time where I won't be available because I'm practicing these self-care rituals that are self-care to me. But you have to take that time. And, as chiefs, we need to do better about practicing what we preach. And, I felt like, talking to staff recently, I said, oh, balance. And they're like, how do you do it? When's the last time you've been on vacation? I said, well, I did go when I first came to San Diego. I went to Jamaica last March. But prior to that, I hadn't been on a vacation in 10 years. And I was a person who would schedule a vacation and say, I can't leave. And it wasn't because I didn't trust the team. I just I need to be here with the team. And I would cancel it and cancel it and cancel it. And I was like, no more. You schedule it and you take it, because for me to be the best servant I can for this team, I have to practice that self-care.
Well, you just made Chief Hansen very, very proud. Somewhere he's probably listening to this and thinking, she heard me. And that is something that we do talk about, and it's hard to do. I know we're getting close to our time. Chief Washington, do you have something you want to add to that?
Well, I was just going to add, I talked to my son about this, and he talks about not just work-life balance, but work-life harmony. So you have to have this togetherness of it. But one of the things I like Chief Nelson saying is actually taking that time for yourself, because we will be replaced really quickly. And that's important for us to know. But for everyone that's listening too, our staff think we're omni everything. Like we can be present for every situation. We're on 24/7 for those of us who have institutions as well. But we need that disconnect as well. And I remember I've actually not just grown up in one department like Chief Tulloch said. I actually worked in Contra Costa for 18 and a half years. And I remember I got off on a Sunday night at 11:30, and I started Napa the next day at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, not taking a break or disconnecting from those two. And when I became a chief, I said, I'm going to take 2 weeks off before I start my job as a chief. And I constantly, when you have a trusted team, that's when you can take a break and you can take that time away. And I did take a trip to Jamaica, but I had to be available for budget meetings, because I took it in June. But the fact is, you do have to disconnect. And you're no good if you don't disconnect, if you don't turn the phone off, or you don't turn the email off, or you don't disconnect. So I think the perfect thing is for us to have a little autonomy and have some health and wellness. And for those of you guys that are out there, I know I've seen the Q&A. We all have went to school, educated ourselves, and basically, like I mentioned, I started as an extra help employee and worked my way up through the ranks. All of us have something that lended to us being where we are. But now it's time to make sure we do self-care as we continue this career so we can make it long career. So that's the thing, is we don't want to, next year you're talking about where did they go, you know, because we're taking on every single thing. So thank you, Chief Nelson. And I will be making sure my schedule is blocked off for a little bit of that time. So, you know, I'll make sure I do that.
Hey, I appreciate that. What both Chief Washington and Chief Nelson talked about. You know, for the first year, when I was chief, I didn't sleep much. You know, it's just so much that was thrown at you all at one time. And so it was tough to even just get rest when you should have. And so what I learned from that first year is that you have to be present wherever you are, right? So if I'm at work, I'm present at work. I'm focused on doing what I need to get done that day or that hour or that meeting, that moment. But then when I step outside of this space, I'm present at home, you know, dealing with the kids or working with the wife or dealing with things at my church. I mean, you have to have some outlets in order to make sure that you do have a means to so you can understand what the priorities are at any given time. Of course, work and those kind of things, the phone never stops, the emails never stop, but you have to be able to know and manage that. And it takes a little bit of time to figure out what that rhythm looks like. And so it's better now, but certainly I totally understand where staff also, because I think about, you know, managers, probation officers, of course, our juvenile correctional officers that, you know, you never know from one shift to the next what may happen. And so, you know, we want to provide as much support for folks in that. But I think the biggest thing is to put the job in its proper place. It's a means to be able to take care of your family, for you to be able to take care of yourselves, but it should not give you meaning for what your life is, because those things can be taken away. And so when you think about what's important, family is important, and making sure that you have the ability to function outside of this job is really important. So we try to remind people of that fact, because like many of you already said, if I drop dead today, there are 5 people ready to step into this spot. And then they'll be next week. Who was that guy? What was his name? I think it was a black guy, right? Yeah. So I realize and understand that's just a reality when you can understand at least your place in the organization and what's really important.
Well, speaking of what's really important is to, what I heard is to give you all a restroom break. And since it is 2:59 and there might be some 3 o'clock meetings scheduled for those of you on this panel or those of you watching, we want to be respectful of that. But it pains me to even stop the discussion because it's been such a illuminating one. Again, I think folks really appreciated the frankness, the unapologetic way in which you tackled many topics today. Really, we hit a lot of them. And so this hour and a half just flew by, and I cannot thank you all enough for giving your time to share those thoughts. And for everyone else, we did record this. I know it was requested if we would be able to send it out. It will be posted on our website, so people can definitely tune in and you can share it, because I suspect that a few of you listening are like, gosh, somebody in my department would really needs to hear this. And so again, this will have a little bit of life afterwards. And thank you, Chief Tulloch, for reminding everybody they can also go to the website to get a lot of different things that may be helpful to follow up on these conversations and others. So thank you again, everybody. Have a really safe and wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you on the next conversation.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Happy Friday.